Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer on what was basically meant to be the most calculated, flawless bank robbery in human history. I mean, we're looking at a heist so meticulously planned that literally no security system in the world could have stopped it. But as you'll see today, even the absolute greatest digital masterminds can be totally undone by something, well, completely ordinary. So these hackers had their eyes set on a staggering sum, almost $1 billion. But then the total plummets. They went from a target of $951 million all the way down to just 81 million. And that rapid fall, it wasn't caused by some elite cybersecurity team swooping in or, an impenetrable firewall catching them. No way. It was derailed by a mistake that a second grader literally wouldn't make. Let's break down exactly how this whole thing happened. Section 1. Infiltration and espionage. Let's get into the initial breach. So the crucial point here is just how sophisticated this initial breach actually was. Because, the hackers didn't just smash and grab. They deployed a highly custom, three-part malware. First, they cracked open a hidden backdoor into the bank's private network. Second, they created a perfectly encrypted channel, which basically meant stolen data could leave the network without setting off any alarms whatsoever. And third, and this is honestly the most dangerous part, the malware began silently spying and recording every single activity. For an entire year, these hackers just lurked there, completely invisibly. They literally just watched who logged in, when the bank was closed, and exactly how the employees operated the system. And during this massive year of deep espionage, the hackers figured out that the bank's foreign currency reserves were actually held at the Federal Reserve in New York. Now, to move that kind of money, banks use something called the SWIFT system. You can think of SWIFT as a highly secure WhatsApp for banks. It's used exclusively to authorize the transfer of billions of dollars all over the globe. But the hackers knew SWIFT itself was practically impenetrable, right? So rather than trying to hack that ultra-secure system directly, they masterfully targeted the human element instead. They learned how to mimic the specific computers and the specific employee credentials inside the Bangladesh bank that were used to authorize those massive transfers. Section 2. The Game of Perfect Timing. Here is their game plan. Fast forward to Thursday, February 4th, 2016. The employees in Bangladesh go home for the night, and the hackers finally make their move. They log in, and they initiate exactly 35 transfer requests right through that compromised SWIFT terminal. These requests targeted $951 million, held safely in the New York Federal Reserve. But honestly, the sheer genius of this plan wasn't just in those massive numbers. It was in exactly when they hit send. And this brilliantly illustrates the true masterstroke of this entire heist, the timing. The hackers literally weaponized global time zones. Think about it. When they struck on Thursday night in Bangladesh, their local weekend had just started, which meant the bank would be totally closed on Friday. But over in New York, it was Friday morning. The Federal Reserve was wide open, fully staffed, and just happily processing these totally normal-looking transfers. And their target destination for all that cash? The Philippines. The following Monday was the Chinese New Year, which is a national holiday there, meaning those local banks were closed too. So they successfully engineered 4 full days of absolute uninterrupted silence across 3 different global time zones. It's just wild. But they also needed a physical cover-up, because inside the Bangladesh bank, there sat this old HP LaserJet printer that was designed to print out every single SWIFT transaction in real time. It essentially acted as a physical alarm system. But of course, the hackers thought of this too. First, they hacked the printer so it would only spit out blank paper. Second, when the duty employee came in on Saturday morning and saw the blank prints, he just assumed it was a routine hardware glitch. And third, he completely ignored it, figuring someone would just look into it later. So the hackers successfully blinded the bank in the physical world, basically stopping any alarms from going off until the weekend was totally over. Section 3. One small mistake. This is the turning point. Okay, this is the absolute climax. This is the exact moment history pivoted. The intended recipient for one of the major transfers was the Shalika Foundation. But what did the hackers actually type out? Shalika Foundation. F-A-N-D-A-T-I-O-N. They missed the letter O. $1 billion heist, years in the making, the most secure networks on Earth infiltrated, and they misspelled the World Foundation. Now, the crazy part is the New York Fed didn't even catch the typo, but a routing bank in Germany did. They flagged the transaction and sent an immediate, urgent message back to the Fed saying something seems wrong. And that single missing letter caused absolute sheer panic in New York. They suddenly realized they were actively being robbed and just immediately halted all the remaining transactions. So that one tiny spelling mistake effectively saved $850 million from disappearing into thin air. Section 4. The missing 81 million. Where did it actually go? Let's move to the aftermath and see how this builds, because unfortunately, the initial batches of transfers had already slipped right through the cracks. $81 million had already successfully landed in the Philippines, and by the time the Bangladesh bank desperately sent stop payment messages to the RCBC bank in Manila, it was way too late. Remember that Chinese New Year holiday? It meant those emergency messages just sat unread until Tuesday. Following the money trail here, as soon as the bank opened on Tuesday morning, the money was rapidly withdrawn from those dormant fake accounts they'd set up months prior. Then it was taken straight to massive casinos in Manila and converted directly into gaming chips to completely break the paper trail. Finally, those untraceable funds were smuggled right out to Hong Kong. The RCBC bank manager who actually allowed those massive withdrawals, despite the incoming stop payment messages, they were eventually sentenced to 7 years in prison for money laundering. Which brings us to a really lingering, provocative question today. It has been nearly 10 years since this incredible event took place, yet neither the $81 million nor the actual masterminds who orchestrated this massive breach have ever been found. It remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the financial world. And honestly, it just leaves us all to marvel at how a single tiny spelling error changed the course of financial history forever. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the details.